Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS, presented by Fisherman's Marine and Outdoor. Now it's time for your weekend tech tip, brought to you by Chevy Silverado.
Welcome back, everyone. Now, Daniel, who sent this question in, hopefully that a little bit of advice I gave you on, running the rivers itself makes some sense to you. Get it all the information that you can. I mean, online, anything that you can do to make sure that you got a couple of feet forward before you just throw everything on the water and start running. Now, as far as this other question, not being able to cast, which is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting for you, Daniel. But back trolling. Let's get a shot with that Kershaw Tech Cam real quick, just to give you an idea of what you need to go and make sure that you have, okay? Mag lips or the wigglers from Brad's, a good selection of plugs in 3.5, the 3.0s, some divers, either be the Magnum or the standard divers. You can use jet divers as well. I am a much larger fan of using these in smaller river systems, and I typically only use the Magnum divers when I'm using diver and bait. And along those lines, don't be using diver and bait in situations where you're on a river that is loaded with wild fish, okay? There's a number of different river systems that this is fully applicable using bait behind a diver, and there's some rivers that you just don't do that, and you run plugs, okay? That being said, get a good selection of plugs, get a good selection of divers. There's a number of ways, and we've talked about it here in the last couple of weeks, a lot. About back trolling, so you can go back to that or find videos online for different riggings, but we just don't have the time to get there right now. But a good selection of plugs and divers and a good setup for your rod and reel. I like anything from 8'6", remember the old school 8'6", right, to a 9'6". Now that's for a number of reasons. One, a shorter rod out of the back of the boat and then a longer rod off to the side. That's kind of the way that you would do it if you got multiple people on the boat. And softer, 6 to 17 pound line rating would be ideal. Something that's going to have a nice soft tip to it so that when those plugs are working, that they get all the room that they can to hunt around, because that's what those steelhead want to see, okay? Now that's just baits, rod, and reel. But again, and a line counter. Hugely important. You can use reels that are not line counters. Just measure out 45 to 50 feet and make sure that all the rods that are in the boat are set up that way so that you have a very even line of baits being back trolled, plugs, divers, whatever, so that it's uniform. You don't want to have one at 60 and one at 30, and it's just not going to be, not that you wouldn't get bit, it's just not an advantage, okay? But if you have a line counter, that line counter is going to be an advantage. You can get your gear in and out and get back to the same spot every time, okay? So 8'6" to 9'6", 6 to 17, something that's got a nice soft tip on it. I'd go over to Ed's website right away and just start looking through some of those Black Widow rods. There's a number of different rods that will be very universal, meaning that you can use them for back trolling. You could use them for casting. I mean, there's a number of things that you can do with good quality rods as opposed to just one rod for one thing. Now, I like that, but there's certainly ways that you can utilize the same rods to do different things, if that makes any sense. So a line counter, good rod, loaded with 30-pound braid, okay? You want braid, that's what I like. There's a lot of folks that are gonna say, oh, no, I want mono on those plugs, fine, okay? Myself, I'd rather the rod do the work and have excellent line, and that's going to be a 30-pound braid. The Braid 8 or something similar from P-Line is excellent. If you're going to run divers, I like to run with a dropper of any number of lengths depending on current and depths, but at the very least, you can also run it right off the belly if you want. Lots of information out there on that as well. But most importantly is just make sure when you're back trolling that you are backing down, okay? Don't sit in one spot or you might as well throw a hook out, right? Which might upset a bunch of people. So maybe not do that depending on the river you're on. But as long as you're backing down into the areas where fish are gonna be, right? Between 3, 15 foot of water, somewhere in there, good current walking speed, something that you can still back down on. A lot of times folks will stop early when they get to a bottom end, a tail out of a run, whatever it might be. Don't do that. A lot of times you're moving fish down, and when they get to a point of no return or where they might have to go downriver or try to avoid your baits, that's when they bite. So just don't give up too early, and also always start a little ahead of time, okay? Just so that you can get those baits to the fish before you start working through them. I know that's very, very quick, but there's a lot of sources that are out there, Daniel. In the end, Just be very careful out there when you get out on the water. Get as much research under your belt that you can. And if there's anything we can do to help here, just let me know. I'm always here to help on that. All right, we're going to cut to a break. When we come back, we're going to wrap it up and give you an idea what we got going on for this upcoming weekend.